Hey guys, I'm just another engineer, and welcome back to the second tutorial in my logic tutorial series. This time, I actually know what I'm doing in advance, first of all, and this time it is all about timers and ticks. It's a nice alliteration there for you, and no, not the ticks that gives you Lyme disease and all that disgusting stuff, like time ticks, like seconds divided by 40. That's exactly what a tick is. Crap, I just spoiled it. But either way, so the game works, or I'm just jumping right into this. The game works in a system of ticks. So every frame you see, despite the fact that you can see, 295 FPS, that doesn't really matter because the game works in a sense of ticks. There are 40 seconds in, 40 ticks in 1 second, which means, if you can do the math, 1 tick every 0.25 seconds. Now, this is very important when you're talking about logic, and I'll just show that right now. So here you can see I have set up with 2 lights. One of them is connected directly into the light, and the other one is connected up to this long chain of various logic gates. Now, this is to simulate, say, some form of circuit that isn't just a very long line of AND gates. So whatever it may be, if you want to make an adder or subtractor, or something, make a noise, whatever it is, that will all take 1 tick for each one of these guys. So let's see, this guy hooked up straight into it. You press the button, light comes on almost instantly. But here, if you can watch, it takes an amount of time. And I've actually never done this before. This looks amazing, by the way. But you can see that it takes an amount of time. It may take barely any time for just 1 or 2 of these logic gates to go through. But of course, all of that stacks up, if I can build while talking here. All of this stacks up. Like, you can see that's almost instant. It's, of course, so what is that? 0.075 seconds off, so 75 milliseconds there. But then, however many these are, that adds on 0.025 seconds each time, which makes it just a little bit slower to happen every single time. And that adds up after a while, so you have to take into account. And I'll show you an example in another world that I built later on. But this can also be used to an advantage, or at least by to an advantage I mean it can be much more compact. I don't know where I went with that to advantage thing, but you can condense that into a timer or a delay, whatever it may be. So you can see this is the exact same thing, and the nice thing about this is that you can adjust its time. So you can see that takes 2 seconds to light up. This will take, so this guy goes up to 59 seconds, this guy goes up to 1 second, so you need to do all of those to make it a minute. And this is going to take a long time, but as you can see, this will continue on, and after 60 seconds or 1 minute, it will light up the light. Of course, we don't have any time for that, because I want to keep this episode short. But if you may have noticed, these guys remember which pulse it is. I guess it would be easier to do it like that. So you can see it will break the end of the signal even if it hasn't reached the end yet. So you can see, wrong buttons, you can see the wave of a signal going through. And that's very important because if you want to make, say, a circuit like this that I'll just make real quick. So here I've made a simple circuit that should work in theory. It has an AND gate, which is connected up to the button, and it has a timer that's also connected to the button, and then connected to the AND gate, which just goes into a light to show you whenever it's active. So, in theory, whenever both the button is pressed and the 2-second timer is over with, that will activate. Seems simple, right? But it isn't, because you can let go of it, and then so long as the first pulse has made its way through, and is currently activating it, it won't give you the desired output. So say you want it to be held for 2 seconds straight without interruptions. I could hold it for a little bit, let go, and then press it real quick, and I haven't held it for 2 seconds straight. I've split it up. So again, C should be crouch. Or I don't know, I've just been playing other games. You can see that it's a little bit broken the way that this works. So you need to sort of work out a way to make this work, if you understand what I'm saying. Or you could make something absurd like this that kind of resembles the first example, where you have a loop like this. It's kind of hard to see with all the connections, but you have a loop like this that runs over there, and these are all AND gates, which means that all of it has to be active, and this switch is connected up to all of them. So this gives you the effect that you want. But of course, you would need a lot of logic gates there. You can see it has that effect. You can press it as many times as you want, but unless you hold it down for the full, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, crap. The full 0.3 seconds that this is, the light will not light up. Alright, and here is the other example that I was talking about the whole use for stringing together multiple of these little guys, or at least the effects in which having a tick delay on the logic circuits can have an effect on you, or not logic circuits, the logic gates. They have a 1 tick delay, and that can hurt you. So here I have a crappy calculator that I made with poor user interface, like very poor user interface, but this was just an experiment. So basically I have inputs there, bunch of stuff to process it, storage, actual calculations, and then short-term memory. I'm not going to get into this unless you want me to, but over here I have some things that decipher, or at least I'm pretty sure these are the things that decipher which code is which. So I have a section in which you input the data, or data, whatever you want to call it, into the system, saying this is the number, maybe like a 7, and then there's a separate panel for codes saying that I want to add these numbers, or I want to put this into memory, or I want to load from memory, whatever it may be. I have these guys that process it. So basically I have a NOR gate, NOR gate, and an AND gate. Connect up the AND gate to the positive inputs, NOR gate to the negative inputs, and actually I completely forget how this works. Hang on, let me just try and, okay. Alright, there's no way in heck that I'm going to be able to figure out how this works once again. I'll just make my own example. Alright, so here is a decent example, I'd say. Because it's kind of hard to explain this stuff basically, but here's how the 1 tick delay can kind of bite you in the back, if you will. So I have a basic setup here, which hard codes in a combination that you need. So it's basically this combination right here, but instead of it being constantly fed through, I have it on this button. So this button is set up as an AND gate through these guys, right? So this acts, just a bit of a review to see if you understood yesterday, or not yesterday, last episode's lesson. The AND gate makes sure that if both inputs are on, then it sends through a signal. So I have all of these guys feeding in, along with this button feeding into each one of these AND gates. And this acts as kind of like a data gate. So the information will only flow through whenever I tell it to by pressing the button. And let me just turn that off, a bit distracting. So I have all of these guys connected up like that, and I have this connected to all of these guys. So let's just look at this guy. If none of them are on, then that's a 0. If I press this, then that's a 1, that's a 0, so then that's a 0. if I have that on, this is the actual input that I want, but that's a 0, which means that it's a 1 and a 0, which makes it a 0, because all of them need to be 1s. And then when I press the button, all of them are 1s, which means that that outputs a 1. So that's a basic way of having an information gate. So that right there is the combination. You press the button, and it goes through. But watch what happens if I put in the wrong code. It flashes on just for a second, if you can see that. I have no idea if that's too quick for YouTube to pick up on, but you can see it flashes for just a second. And the reason why is because the way that I've hard-coded this in, no, wrong button once again, is I have a NOR gate, which, if you can see, it's on if its inputs are off, but if even one of its inputs are on, then it turns off. So that means that I can hook up the ones that I want to be off into it, and so long as those inputs stay off, then they will not turn, it'll stay on. So, sorry, let me start that again. If the inputs that you're scanning for are currently off, if all of them are off, then it will stay on. But if a single one of them turns on, then the logic block will turn off, which means that I can use this to see if all of the ones that I want to be off are off. So if one of the ones that I want to be off are on, then this guy will turn off and it won't work. But for the on setting, I have these guys feeding in, which means that all of the ones that need to be on for this to be able to have all inputs, plus this needs to be on, which means that the two negative inputs, I'll call them, are off. So that means that this can tell which one is which. But the thing is, since this is the output, let's just take this through step by step. So I'll color everything that hasn't processed yet in red, and everything that has processed in green. So these guys have processed because they're all on their own. When I press this button, that goes, all of these have processed. Now, when I press these guys, those will go off. And then, while this one, yellow is like, there's information at it, but it hasn't quite yet processed. So this has information, and it's still processing. This has information, and it's still processing. One tick later, this guy has just processed its information and has sent it over to here, which means that it has another extra little bit of information to process. This guy has already finished it and has sent it off to the light, which means that this guy has sent off its information before the negative scanner has had a time to confirm that these guys are off. And then one tick later, this guy receives it, and then notices, oh hey, this actually isn't supposed to be on, it's supposed to be off, and then turns it off one tick later. So that's why you can see, no, that's a correct combination. That's why you can see one little flash. And that is how ticks work. Kind of. Alright, and that's kind of it for this episode. It's not exactly the easiest thing in the world to explain how ticks work, but if you already know how it works, hopefully you can kind of decipher what I'm saying. If you don't know how they work, hopefully you can decipher what I'm saying, because it's kind of hard to explain them, but once you get, once you understand how ticks work, then it's quite obvious, and it can really bite you in the back whenever you're making complicated things, whenever your timing doesn't work. So always just make sure that you pay attention to your timings in advanced circuits. So I guess that's it for this episode. Next episode, I'll try and show you some advanced circuits using more than one logic block or more than one timer, whatever it may be. So I'll try and find some extra stuff in the future, but other than that, that would be all for this episode, and goodbye.